Thank you, everybody, for coming to listen in today, and thank you very much to the Stock Network for putting the event on. I'm looking forward to talking to you today about Arovella Therapeutics and what we're doing in terms of using our iNKT cell platform to target both blood cancers initially and also solid tumours. And so for those of you that don't know us, we are listed on the ASX under the ticker ALA. Please note our disclaimer, I will be making forward-looking statements. Now, in terms of our strengths, I'd like to start here and just to note very clearly that we're working on our invariant natural killer T or iNKT cell platform for short to target both blood cancers and solid tumours. Now, we're aiming to take our lead product, ELA-101, which is a potential treatment for CD19 expressing blood cancers into clinical trials in calendar year 2024, which is quite exciting. The cell therapy sector I'll talk about in a moment, but it is a very important sector now for cancer treatment, and we believe our iNKT cell platform specifically solves key challenges that have hampered the sector. Now, in terms of our leadership, I'll touch on it, but we've got an excellent team from management level to board level with a lot of experience across drug development specifically. Now, in terms of how we've built the company, we have licensed what we consider to be the best technologies from research institutes and universities worldwide, and we continue to do that actively for screening for technologies that we believe will enhance our platform. So for those reasons, as well as the fact that we're one of a handful of companies globally working on iNKT cells and the only Australian company listed or otherwise working on iNKT cell platform, we do see that we are well positioned for growth. So as I said, I won't go through every team member individually here, but what you'll notice is the majority of the group has either a PhD or an MD, so a lot of experience either across scientific research or in our case, oncology specifically. So again, phenomenal team right the way through from academic research all the way through to drug development and then on to commercial transactions. Now, I'd like to talk more about the cell therapy sector itself and why it's been so exciting to date. So for blood cancers today, we've actually seen, and we use the words cure and cancer in the same sentence for some of these malignancies, which is phenomenal. Not surprisingly, out of that, there were two very early CAR T products approved in 2017. Combined last year, they did more than $2 billion in sales. And so naturally out of that, we're expecting the cell therapy market to reach certainly high double-digit billions by 2030. Just important to point out, like most cancer therapeutics, though, there are no silver bullets and one-shot fixes all. So we do see that about 40 to 60% of patients can still relapse post CAR T treatment. This is a wonderful example here of a young lady, Emily Whitehead, who was the first pediatric patient to take these types of therapies experimentally. And this is a snapshot of her every year over 10 years. And great to say this year that it's actually 12 years that she'll be now cancer-free, which is phenomenal. So how do CAR T therapies actually work? And I'd just like to point out very clearly, when we think about personalized medicine, this is literally personalized medicine. And I'll make that clear in just a moment. But essentially for these patients, they will have failed several lines of therapy and they'll say, you're eligible for CAR T. So they'll actually draw blood, collect the immune cells from the blood called T cells. They're like soldiers that find things that don't belong and eliminate them. And they get taken to a lab and reprogrammed genetically. So they have a CAR or chimeric antigen receptor on the surface, and that's where we get CAR T for CAR T. That's now trained, and think about it like a homing missile. It's trained the immune cells to find and kill cancer cells. So they get grown up into large numbers in a dish. They'll be given back to the patient from where they came, and they'll find, in this case, it's a little green bump on the surface of the cancer cell. And once that happens, they will engage and destroy the cancer cells. So as I said, why it's personalized, we start with the patient and we finish with the patient. So we think this naturally causes some pretty significant challenges for the sector, largely around the manufacturing, which yields both challenges from a supply chain point of view, but also from a cost point of view. It's about $500,000 US per dose. And also we know that because the patients have seen things like chemo or cancer, they're actually, their immune cells are compromised, right? So we're starting with raw material that may not be as efficacious. Not all treatment centers can make these therapies. So it really means that patients will be eligible, but they won't actually get access to these therapies. It takes 3 to 4 weeks, sometimes longer, to make a batch for a patient. So that actually means that some patients will have such aggressive disease that they won't make it to their dosing. Because it's being made for every patient every time, there's always a risk of manufacturing run failure. So what we're working on is our iNKT cell platform, which we're aiming to use so that we're actually able to manufacture from one single person. So we'll take their iNKT cells, manufacture for the targeting, and then be able to dose many patients from that one individual that donor collection. So the key here is that we'd be able to have that material in a freezer and we'd be able to dose a patient ideally within less than 1 week. So what gives us the ability to do that? And as I've mentioned already, T cells here in the top right, and this is just a snapshot of some of our immune cells. NK cells have also generated some attention, but as I said, for us, it's really these iNKT cells in the middle that we're most interested in. And what enables us to be able to do this is, unlike a T cell, which will recognize things as foreign if it goes from one person to another, iNKT cells do not do that. And they've been shown not to do that in clinical trials from other groups. So we're very comfortable that we can take material from one healthy donor and give that to many patients. Now, in addition to that, they actually have a fast-acting or innate immune response, so they work quite quickly. And they also have an adaptive immune response, which means they also can have a longer-term and persistent response as well. They actually are considered to be the front line of our immune system, working quite quickly, and they can actually kill like multiple immune cell types like T cells and NK cells. And in some cases, they will naturally target and kill certain cancer types as well. So there's a range of properties that I won't go into detail here, but we also think that sets them up very nicely for use in solid tumours. Now, importantly from us, from a market perspective, we look at T cell or CAR T players as well as NK cell players. There are hundreds of companies and close to thousands of clinical trials ongoing in this space. But when we look at the iNKT cell space specifically, we see that there are just a handful of companies working in this space. So we're delighted at Arovella that we have planted our foot firmly in a really important treatment modality for cancer patients. And we've done it in a way that is unique and differentiated. And because we keep licensing additional IP that enhances our platform, we're even further differentiating ourselves within the iNKT cell space. So just to quickly touch on some points here. This is a snapshot of some transactions that have taken place over the last few years, and specifically in the cell therapy space, and specifically for transactions in the early stages like phase 1 and phase 1B. And what you can see is for many of these, there are quite a lot of higher value upfront payments in that $100 to $200 million range. For some, like this one here between AstraZeneca and Cellectis, there was also a $220 million upfront equity investment. And then the most recent transaction in the space, which closed just a few weeks ago now, was AstraZeneca acquiring Gracell for $1 billion upfront with $200 million of milestone payments payable. So what this tells us is this is still an important sector for large pharmaceutical companies, notwithstanding the difficulties that we've seen in the biotech sector for the last 2 years or so. Now, in terms of Arovella, looking at the curve on the right here, I think it's quite clear that we've delivered quite a lot of shareholder growth over the last 12 to 18 months, which is excellent. In terms of our cash position, we have just under $5 million at the end of December last year, so we're in a good position from a capital perspective. In terms of our register, it's excellent. We've got a very supportive investor in Merchant Group, who are our largest shareholder, and a number of high net worths and smaller institutions that also continue to be very supportive of our activities within the company. Now, in terms of our pipeline, we have 3 major arms. We've got ALA-101, which we're developing, as I've mentioned, for blood cancers such as lymphoma or leukemia. ALA-105, which we're using to tackle a range of solid tumours. So we licensed that particular target in October last year. And IL-12-TM, this is something we're going to integrate into our solid tumour programs, which enables us to enhance the response that we'll see across a range of different solid tumours. Now, in terms of our milestones for 2024, we do have a very busy 12 months and beyond, but certainly the key focus for this year is to complete the manufacture of our ALA-101, which we'll then take into phase 1 clinical trials, which at the moment we're working in parallel to do all the preparatory activities for phase 1, such as including the preparation of the regulatory dossier, as well as engaging with clinical sites and key opinion leaders, and ultimately intending to start phase 1 in the second half of this year. So for ALA-105, this is our newest program, which we're intending to use to target gastric cancers and pancreatic cancers. So we're excited to get clinical data or preclinical data, I should say, for that in the first half this year, which would lead to then us optimizing the CAR for efficacy and then collecting animal data before commencing formal manufacturing for that, to take that into the clinic. And as I said, IL-12-TM is what we've licensed more recently from the University of North Carolina, which will integrate into our solid tumor programs. And we expect to enter into a sponsored research agreement with the inventor of that platform, Professor Gianpietro Dotti, who pioneered some of the early CAR-iNKT cell work. So with that, I'd just like to summarize. I think it's clear we've got a really exciting novel off-the-shelf iNKT cell platform. We believe this will go a long way to helping improve logistics through the manufacturing benefits. Unlike many other immune cells, CAR-iNKT cells have multiple benefits that we think will enhance their performance, not just in blood cancers, but also potentially solid tumors. We're excited that we're aiming to take ALA-101 into clinical trials this year. We do have an expanding pipeline, and again, we continue to survey the landscape to see how we can use the platform or build upon the platform to increase the utility across a range of cancer types. And again, for all these reasons, we do think, and being the only a company in Australia that's working on an iNKT cell platform and one of a handful globally, we are still well positioned for growth in the months and years to come. With that, I'd just like to say thank you again very much for listening in, and very much appreciate your attention.